welcome to the Pop-Up Podcast, Beyond the Show. This is our first episode, and we are excited, nervous, all of the above, for what the next few episodes are going to entail. We wanted to create this podcast because we want to create a space for performers to hear our journey, hear what's going on within the entertainment industry, within Pop-Up Global, and also discuss future things and future opportunities for people to get involved with. I will be hosting some of the episodes, but today, Laura Ellen White will be hosting. Laura is the Business Development Director for Pop-Up Global. I am the CEO and founder, and we also have Dan and Shelley, who you will see on future episodes. So shall we just get started? Let's do it.
Amy said no, but Dan said yes. And now we've got this jingly mess. Laura and Shelley, they won't admit. Secretly, they're loving it. It's your fave podcast, hosted by Pop-Up. I should have done a vocal warm-up, but here we are, so get ready to know what goes on beyond the show. Beyond the show. Do, 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 do. Beyond the show. Do, 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 do. Beyond the show. Do, 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 do. Beyond the show. Yeah.
So, don't, because we're going to laugh all the way through. So this episode is all about you, Amy, and your journey from performer to CEO. Mm-hmm. So I want us to start right at the very beginning. What made you want to become a performer?
Well, it's all I've ever known. Since being a toddler, I was always singing, dancing, and just stealing the limelight at every opportunity.
Shock.
And so I was immediately put into all the classes, the baby ballets, the singing, the dancing. And I just feel like through every year that I went through school, that was always the thing that pulled me. I wasn't necessarily academic. I tried hard and I got okay grades from applying myself, but it was always the theatre, the dancing, not the dancing, that, for anyone that's listening, by the way.
That's
slander. Joke. Yeah, that is slander. I am not a dancer. We just have to.
I can't believe you just said that on the podcast.
I did do a lot of dancing.
But you tried.
I tried, but I wasn't a dancer. And so, yeah, I just always was drawn to that. I was in all the school shows. I was Lady Macbeth, age 9.
She doesn't like to bring it up, ever.
And then when I got to A-level age, I still only wanted to do that. And I think, especially at the school that I went to, everybody was like, I'm going to be a lawyer and I'm going to be a doctor. And I was like, I'm going to be on stage. And it was always, and I actually don't know what it's like now in the education, but it was always something that was a bit frowned upon. But I still had parents that supported me and that were encouraging for me to then go on to university to do theatre and performance. Now, it wasn't a drama school, it was a red brick university, but basically what I'm trying to say is I don't know how much clout my degree has got at Leeds University, but it was in theatre and performance. And that's it. Just literally, there was no break from being a toddler to an adult in performance.
So what was it after all of that education? Obviously you were aiming for that was like the actual aim from the beginning, but what was it that pushed you to be like, no, I'm going to take this seriously, this is what I'm going to do?
So we used to go on cruises a lot as a family, and I remember watching the shows on the ships and being like, that would be a great job, because obviously a lot of performers want to be in the West End and they want to be on Broadway. I also had realism. I wasn't talented enough to go and do that, but I was talented, and I also wanted variety in my life. And so when I saw the performers on board ships, that they were able to do different shows each night, it still was, tough work, and you had to be talented to do it, but they also were sailing around the Caribbean and around the Mediterranean and all of that. So from a teenager, I was like, I want to perform on cruise ships. And when I was at uni, I worked at it's quite a theatrical bar actually, and there was a poster in the window of that for a cruise ship audition at Leeds Ballet School, just around the corner. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go. I didn't really tell anyone apart from my roommate at the time. And I got the job.
Here you are.
Here I am, guys.
Just rewinding, what was, because you spoke a lot about Lady Macbeth. Is that your first big performance, would you say?
Lady Macbeth.
Lady Macbeth. Is that when you were like, wow, I'm a
damn spot. I remember that.
Is that the moment where you thought, God, I'm a star? Or like, what was your first big performance, the first time that you were on stage and you were like, oh, wow, this is what I should be doing?
When I was 12.
Oh, God. Right.
I played Little Cosette in Les Mis.
Right.
And that's when I thought, God, I really come alive there in Castle on the Cloud.
I nailed that.
Yeah.
Also, for reference, Amy is 5 foot, so I imagine when she was 12, she looked about 7 years old.
Yeah.
So great casting from the school.
And nobody else, all the sixth formers got the lead parts. They didn't get a song, but I did.
Cost tiny.
Because tiny. I'm talented.
Congratulations. Well done for that. Does that stayed with you forever?
Yeah.
Standing ovation or?
Probably.
Right. Okay, so you've just mentioned cruise ships. That was your first, I guess, like gateway into the entertainment industry. What was it like?
The experience on board the ship, you mean?
Yeah, like what was it like working on a cruise ship? What was it like being in the shows?
I
How
would
you
say,
describe it?
honestly, hands down, and we have this conversation a lot, that period of time, and I've been in business 10 years, but that period of time is the hardest I have ever worked. I came fresh out of uni. I'd never lived abroad before. I'd never, left home as such, apart from like an hour up the road. And I had to learn 11 shows, 2 plays, 4 cabarets, and a solo cabaret in 10 weeks. And I remember feeling so overwhelmed by the sheer volume of content that I had to learn. And also, like, I'd done a theatre performance degree. I hadn't done this. I was having to transfer those skills into this new job. And it was really, really challenging. Once we got on board and I'd got settled, I'd begun to enjoy it. And I've met some of my best friends on there that are still my best friends now. And Dan, who some of you that listen to this will know now works at Pop-Up. He was my company manager and dance captain on board when I was on my first contract. There were highs and lows. I'd say they made me a much better performer, again, because of the versatility, the amount of different styles of dance. And yes, I did have to dance. I had to be centre front for tap numbers, which was...
the money I would pay to see it.
Yeah,
honestly.
I mimed nobody at Pop-Up should be miming, just an FYI, but I did mime time steps for 9 months. But it was challenging, and I think times are changing. That was 2012. I don't think there was as much support. I remember feeling, and it's funny actually, because at the time I didn't know I had anxiety. I just felt this feeling all the time, like I was suffocating, and I didn't know what that word was. I remember calling my mum all the time. I was trying to explain to Dan how I felt, but no one used that word, anxiety. I think I was just like, oh, I'm just finding it hard. I didn't know what that word was. So there wasn't the support that there is now. So I had some of the best times of my life, and 2012 will always be one of the best years I've ever had, but also some of the hardest times doing that job.
Why did you, obviously you chose cruise ships because you were in the cafe and you saw it, but why did you not go down, and you obviously had the experience of going on cruises when you were a child. Why cruise ships? Why not something else? Why was it specifically that?
It was the opportunity to travel and do what I loved at the same time. And I think that's why our performers that do our cruise contract now choose cruise over anything else, because they're just on a world cruise. They're doing Maldives, Mauritius, South Africa, all of these incredible places. You're being paid to see the world whilst doing what you love.
And working 7 days a week and doing that tap dance, Amy.
Yeah.
And what was your favourite moment of being on stage during that time? Do you have one that stands out?
There is no feeling like performing with your best friends, which is great, because also once you're 6 months in and it's just in your body, you know exactly what you're doing. There's a little scope to have fun whilst you're on stage.
Not that anyone at Pop-Up that performs for us does that.
No, they do. They absolutely do. But I also think it's a rite of passage, isn't it? That you have
it's part of the fun, isn't it?
And Dan was such a joker.
Was, past tense.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, he is. But I also remember a time when I was sat on stage doing cabaret from Cabaret, and all the beads of my dress got stuck to the chair, and I'm supposed to stand up and go centre stage, but the beads, I couldn't get up. I was stuck to the chair, and the light had already changed to the centre of the stage where I should be, and I was in pitch black, and I could see the techie at the back being like, "Get up!" And I was like, I thought at this point I'm gonna have to carry this chair to my arse to the centre of stage to finish this song, and in the end I just ripped the entire beading of my dress, beads just smashed everywhere around me, and I was like, this is such a low point. Like,
How many people almost broke the neck?
Yeah, a lot. But that's all, and that we're talking, I don't know, 12 years ago now.
But how funny that you still remember that and you
Yeah.
still find it funny.
Because time stood still during that time.
We've all had that moment. And
Yeah.
I'm sure performers listening will be like, relatable,
Yeah.
because we've all been there. I think we're going to move on to further down the line.
Okay.
So we did cruise ships. Then, during that time, obviously you did a couple of contracts, you're away. At what point did you start thinking about life after performing? So was it whilst you were on a ship? Was it after you came home? Did you dabble in other things? Like, what did that look like for you?
In between, without getting really deep, in between the two contracts, my dad got really poorly and was in hospital for 3 months. So I was his like full-time carer. And I think when things like that happen, it really puts things into perspective. And so when I went away again, it didn't feel the same. I wanted to be back home, and I wanted to be with him and with my family. So that was one of the deciding factors to come back. And so I was exploring different ways in which I could be at home and make money. I started doing some gigs in Blackpool, which we could do a whole other episode on what it's like gigging in Blackpool, which for those that don't know is a town in the north of England that is...
What's appropriate?
There's no words for Blackpool.
Google it.
Yeah, give it a Google. But it was actually quite fun at the time because of the experiences that you go through when one is in Blackpool. But I also explored being a medical device rep, which is really rogue. But I thought it's a script that you have to learn. It's effectively like a performance to these doctors. And if you sell them, you make loads of money.
Sales. That's what you're great at.
Sales.
Perfect.
So whilst I was learning how to be a medical device rep and prepping for, what's the word? I was going to say auditions. Interviews for that. Somebody asked me if I would play Elsa at an event in Preston Town Centre. And because I'd been away, I didn't even know what Frozen was. I had absolutely no idea. And I remember sitting in my bedroom learning the words to Frozen and being like, what is this song? I have never heard this before in my life. So I did that job, and because I had really blonde hair at the time and I could sing, it went down an absolute storm. The people of Preston,
My people, by the way,
could not believe Queen Elsa herself had arrived in Preston. And so I did a couple more like that, and then I thought there's something in this. So I started a little Facebook page called Pop-Up Princesses, and I just started charging by the hour to go to children's birthday parties and events as Queen Elsa.
what happened from there? Because I think this is a really good, obviously I know this story, but do us the really quick 60-second rundown of the journey from Elsa, you with your one dress that you had, to...
That I had made, by the way. I designed and made that dress. Not handmade, not me personally. I'm not taking any credit for that.
Lies.
But I did have it. Even then, I think I cared so much about the quality. This dress had to look expensive and premium. I wanted children to really believe I was from Arundel, not from Blackburn. So I put in a lot of care. And I think there was a few things. One, the boom of Frozen. Two, Facebook was a really good tool at the time to build a business.
Especially mums.
Yeah, and we got, we're on 25,000 followers now, and we've not touched that account in years. But also, like I said, the quality. And just the quality of not just the costumes, but what we brought to these children's birthday parties. I'd really thought about the journey of that party for how it was going to flow from start to finish. It wasn't just turn up, sing a couple of songs and leave. There was a lot to it. And so I think people were hungry for that kind of quality. There was no one else really doing these princess parties, which obviously is massive now, but they weren't at the time. And so people were like, oh, do you have Anna? Do you have Belle? Do you have Cinderella? Do you have... And so it kind of built. Before I knew it, I had a team of 8. We'd all meet at the Butler's Arms for a team meeting every Friday. True story. So I started in the October of 2014, and by like the January, I had a full team of performers working for me doing this up and down the country. And within the first year, we were in Wales, we were in London, we were up in Scotland, we were all over England. And we got into Hello magazine, OK magazine, we got into ITV, Billy Fez, Sam Fez, whatever their TV show was. So we did a lot in a really small amount of time. But then it did all come crashing down.
It did, hard and fast.
Yeah. So that was 2014. By 2017, because we were so big, and also bearing in mind at this point, I don't even think we had an Instagram account. Instagram,
if we did, we were barely using it.
It wasn't really a thing. That makes me sound really old.
But it wasn't. But it wasn't the thing
it
in
must
the
have
way...
been a thing, but I don't think businesses were on there the way that
influencers
Facebook...
and things like that,
Yeah,
it wasn't the same.
I don't think as much. Anyway, and if it was like ridiculously filtered, so we weren't on there. And but anyway, we were big and we were doing a lot of events up and down the country, and out of nowhere I got a cease and desist from Disney. And honestly,
which is fair.
Oh, it's completely fair.
Like, Disney, we apologise.
Yeah. Was I impersonating a Disney princess? Yes, I was. But I didn't... This is what I mean, like, when you're doing it and you I wasn't thinking with a business mind at the time. I was 25. I was just thinking, God, I'm enjoying what I'm doing here. I'm creating something. Kids are loving it. Parents are loving it. I wasn't thinking I was doing anything wrong, which was probably so naive of me.
Yeah.
Because now we wouldn't dream of entering any situation that put us in that, spot. But it wasn't like I knew, but just carried on. I just didn't think about it.
And Disney came with the receipts.
Oh, they came with print screens of me in people's living rooms playing Pass the Parcel. They knew.
Little Lucy's 5th birthday, they had it.
Exactly where I was and what I was doing, and they came with pages and pages of print screens of me and other princesses. So that was a really tough time because I was like, I have built this up. I'm now 27. I'd really made a name for myself and I didn't know what to do. But by this point, you were working for me. And that just actually shows how busy we were with just children's birthday parties because I couldn't handle just the admin on my own.
So it was, to be fair, mums cause a lot of admin. I can't.
Well, they do message you at like 11:30 p.m.
Yeah.
And expect a response by 12.
But also, when you think now the staff that... Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but it is wild that you were running a princess party company and had a full-time member of staff.
Because it was the admin. Like, we had so many parties and events in a week that it was really hard to keep up with. So, yeah, and for anybody out there that is doing any IP shows without a license, let me tell you, it's not worth it. Do not do it. They will get you eventually. And if you have built an entire business on that,
it's scary.
It is scary. Luckily, I was only 2 years in versus 10 years in. So we could pivot quite easily. But I remember feeling sick to my stomach, like, what am I going to do? Back to the medical device, right? Because I don't know what I'm going to do at this point. But all of my experience of working on board ships, knowing how shows come together, we decided to start putting on generic family entertainment. So princes and princesses that we had designed, that we had come up with. And it was the best thing that's ever happened to me. Thank you, Disney.
Yeah, thank you,
Disney.
For the threats.
Yeah.
It got us through.
And they dropped the case because I think they realised I didn't have multi-millions.
Yeah, you so, have a tenner, a mail address.
Yeah, and then they never came after me after that. But yeah, so then we pivoted and... Yeah, it was honestly the best thing we could have ever done because within a year we were doing the show at the Trafford Centre where we had like a cast of 25 performers. Again, generic princess. We took the idea and then developed our own concepts off the back of that.
But that's how we came from princesses to I guess, what was the start of what the business is today, isn't
Yeah.
it? So for anybody out there who is listening now, obviously we think there's going to be a lot of performers that is maybe either coming towards what they think is the end of the on-stage career, or somebody that's maybe even just starting out but that wants to kind of have a plan of a trajectory of what their career could look like. What advice would you give them about that transitional period between on-stage to off-stage?
I think the biggest advice, and I speak a lot about this on my Instagram, is if you're 18 or 28, be thinking about it, because it's very easy to get absorbed in the world of dancing in whatever path you've gone down, and not be aware enough that sadly in our industry there is an expiration date for some roles within the entertainment world. Some singers, you could probably keep going till you're 80 if you want to. But if you're going to be a dancer, there will always be a cut-off point. And also, it's not just your abilities, it's your passion, drive, motivation. I think a lot of performers can relate that as you get to like early 30s, probably latest, you start to think, I can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
Because it's back-to-back different jobs. It's the traveling, it's the rehearsing, it's all of that. It's not just the physical toll. But when you're 18, you think that's never going to happen to me. I am invincible.
I want to do this forever.
You're not. So think about it nice and early. And I think a lot of performers, well, maybe it's because they haven't thought about it. Think, okay, well, I'm going to stop dancing now. So I'm going to go into recruitment. I'm going to go into telesales, or I'm going to go into something that's so unrelated, but because you need an income, you need to work. But there are so many opportunities to transition from stage to off stage and stay in the industry if you have your wits about you. Think about it, but also think about all the skills you've learned as a performer, resilience, the ability to learn. Like, you could go into any job and learn that role because of your learning capabilities from your on-stage job. So there's so many transferable skills. You know, I'm big on this, personal branding. Your Instagram and your LinkedIn, which is a huge platform, I believe, is your shop window. And that's the world we live in now. And your TikTok. 2025, everyone's looking, you know that if we get a performer and we're like, oh, we're probably going to cast them, let's just look at their Instagram, let's look at the TikTok, let's see what they're doing. But start gearing some of that content to your future career aspirations. So it's not just dance. Start showing people other skills you've got and how you think, because that can be applied to different roles. And everybody that works at Pop-Up, and we are just about to bring in somebody new as well, all ex-performers. We've all managed to do it. And if you look at a lot of the companies within the industry, a lot of them come from performing backgrounds. So don't believe that once you've hung up your dancing shoes, you have to go into a job that you hate, because you don't.
Agreed. And I also think it's a case of if you start early, so yeah, you're at the beginning of your career, you're going to dance maybe for the next 10 years. But if you start even just like watching, you're on...
networking.
Yeah, you're in rehearsals, you're chatting to you're chatting to the costume person, you're chatting to the casting, you're chatting to somebody who you might think is actually irrelevant. That person could be your key into whatever your next career is.
100%.
And it's learning from those people as well, isn't it?
And we have performers that actively speak to us on jobs, don't they, about, well, tell me, how did you get into it? And what could I do? And I love that.
Yeah.
I love seeing that in performers.
Same. Because I think you're gonna stay here forever. Like, even if it's not dancing or whatever, you will be here for a long time. We'll meet again in a boardroom some point.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you are the founder and CEO of Pop-Up Global. So what, within your role now, do you feel has come from that performance experience? So like your day-to-day, what have you learned from being a performer that you witness and like present in your day-to-day job today?
Flexibility.
Physically? Or
I can't do the splits. That's not what I meant. You have to be flexible. And we all know in any performing job, I don't actually think I've done a performing job or delivered a job through Pop-Up that has gone to the plan that we had.
No.
It just does not happen. So the ability to be flexible, the ability to have resilience, because you've got to have a thick skin. And how many times have you been to an audition and you get there and they cut you straight away? That still continues, my friend. Yeah. You are still being told no a lot of the time. But it just bounces off you now and you just think, it will come because I know how hard I've worked and I know how good we are. It will come. But I do think that background sets you up for that. Even from doing it from a young age when you didn't get, the main Cosette in Les Mis and you only got the child. That's where the resilience starts to build.
For everyone that wasn't Lady Macbeth.
They will feel, that kind of letdown.
And that lesson that they learned, I'm sure, will help them today.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. Anything else?
I
think there's lots of things, isn't there?
Being able to present, the amount of times that we have put a proposal together and we have to present it, and it just doesn't faze me. It really, really doesn't faze me.
Oh, I get the
you do
anxiety,
get anxiety, don't
which
you?
is wild. But it's also because I like to, I work well under pressure, so maybe I don't prep myself as much as maybe one should. So before I get
coming out now, isn't it?
I get that anxiety, but I know how to switch it on.
Yeah, it doesn't faze me because I don't mind being in front of an audience. And also I just think I have faith in what we're talking about and what we're doing. Obviously, I really am anxious about the outcome of that. But the actual delivering the proposal or the pitch, whatever it is that we're doing, doesn't necessarily faze me.
I black out, so
yeah.
I'm glad that you're feeling good about it because I just lose all my memory. Gone. What was the hardest part of stepping off the stage into the job that you do now?
I think being the CEO of the company, I actually get all the shit jobs.
Yeah, I agree, actually.
Yeah, because when I was first setting up the company, I was the one that was helping with the creative on the shows, choosing the costumes, casting. But now, and I think this makes me a good CEO and a good leader, is that I brought people in that are better than me at those roles. But what I'm left with is contracts, accounts, all the boring stuff. Don't get me wrong, it's not all of that, but anything that's like compliance related or anything like that.
You love renewing the insurance. What are you talking about?
Thrive, I come alive. It's just not. And also, let's remember, theatre background. I didn't do a business degree. I didn't learn. I'm having to learn all the time. Just the accountancy software, let me tell you, was a minefield. And I remember the first time a client said, okay, send me your invoice. And I was like, no worries. Mum, what is an invoice? I have no idea what invoice is.
You've been paying me in envelopes.
Yeah. And that's why I feel like we try to be as, what's the word? Informative as possible at Pop-Up, because we've got, 18-year-old dancer that comes in and we're like, make sure you raise a PO, make sure you send an invoice. And they're like, because it is complicated and I never knew how to do any of this. So, and even now, 10 years in, I'm learning all the time. And every time we scale up, there's a whole new level of information that I had no access to before that I'm having to learn. And so I think that's probably the hardest thing, is that I see you guys do so many amazing bits of the job, which obviously I can get involved in and do. But I do end up with a lot of tedious stuff. But I'm steering the ship.
Yeah.
I'm
towards us
ship.
Being able to do all those mint things that you...
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but you do get to be involved in it a lot. And I feel like you also get to, obviously you've got your role, but then within that you also have the opportunity to kind of dip in to I
get to create really nice opportunities for people as well, which you know I love.
The best.
You know I love that kind of stuff.
I love it about you. I love it for me.
Yeah, I do take it too far sometimes, but I love looking after the people that I love, and you three are, it's so cliche, I know, but you three are my best friends and we are a family. So if I've got the opportunity to be like, let's do this amazing thing together, we'll do it.
We probably should have said that at the beginning. We all work together. We're like a management team, but we are best friends, which does sound ick, but it is the truth. We really like being together and like each other a lot, bully each other quite a lot, which we try to keep
in a
out
light-hearted, non-HR way.
Yeah, in a don't tell anyone way. Don't ever let this get out way. Right, stories and lessons. This is what I want to get onto now. We were actually talking about this before, our funniest moments, because I feel like there's so many small little in-joke funny moments. It's hard to pick one, but I want you to try and remember what the funniest moment at Pop-Up was for you. If you can just pick an example, and I hope you don't say what we were talking about earlier.
No, I am going to say that one because it really stands out in my mind and it is embarrassing. Years ago, and bearing in mind, I've obviously been doing this 10 years and this still stands out. We got our studio and our offices were all glass. it's like a glass office in a big studio. And obviously we were just saying we're really close, like we are just best friends, we are girls, it was no issue. And some costumes had arrived and I was like, I'm going to try them on. So it's just me and Laura in the office and I remove my pants.
Which is also fine.
Yeah.
Like, we're trying on costume, fine.
So I'm pulling my pants down to put on some costumes and a man walks through the studio towards the glass office and I'm like, oh my God, trying to pull my pants up. He can see me, I've seen him, our eyes are locked. And it was one of our performers' dads that had come to collect a costume.
I wonder if the performer knows about this. I wonder if he went home and was like, listen.
Your boss had a pants down in the office.
Pants around her ankles, I can't.
That was like shivers, like 10 years down the line, 2 a.m. You're like, oh my God, do you remember when my pants around the ankles and that dancer's dad was just in the office?
It was so funny. Also, I saw the whole thing from him coming into her face. It was so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, I love our job. And that's such a stupid story.
And it's not even related to
It's
entertainment, but
nothing
it does stand out. I mean, obviously we've had a lot of falls and the performers enjoy it as well, so that isn't us picking on them. Like, they send us the videos of like, you'll never guess what happened to so and so last night on the ship, because also no one's doing that on purpose. You can't be mad if someone gets their heel caught in the hem of the dress or whatever. You can't be mad.
And it is funny.
Ultimately, it's really funny. And they put it on their TikToks and it really makes us laugh.
Have you ever had an onstage fall?
Well, no, I got stuck to my thing.
They're stuck to the chair, fine. Okay, fine. I can't believe you just told that story on the podcast. What is the best moment that you've had in your career so far?
Winning our first cruise ship contract.
Tell us about that.
So this was us kind of like transitioning from this family entertainment company that we'd obviously had to pivot to being after the old cease and desist moment. And it was 2019, so I'd only been doing this 5 years. And I'd heard on the grapevine that Fred Olsen Cruise Lines was going out to tender, which was the last cruise line I'd just performed on. So I was like, this is a full circle moment. We at least have to try. And I really did believe, and still do believe, that there is room right now for young, still clinging on to that young word, but young 20s and 30s, fresh entertainment companies. Like, there is a space for us and there is a need for us at the moment. And I really felt that in my gut at the time. And even though we might not have had the experience that our competitors might have had, I knew we had this this quality about us that clients were looking for. And so we put this pitch together and we kept getting from like, there was 25, then there was 10, then there was 5 left in each round. And then Fred Olsen was like, can we come and see you and see your studio? And I was like, guys, we are down to the final 3 now at this point. They want to come and see our studio and what our capabilities are. And, you know, we had a great setup as well. And so the, you know, key people from Fred Olsen Cruise Lines came. They travelled all the way from Ipswich up to Blackburn, where we were in Lancashire. And we put on the most excessive show.
We took it too far, didn't we?
We always take it too far, but that's what makes us winners, Laura.
Yeah, amen.
And I knew we'd impress them because they could see how hungry we were for it. They could see how our performers supported us because they did that for us for free. They wanted us to win because if we win, they win. And I'll never forget, it was like the week before Christmas, and the lady from Fred Olsen Cruise Lines called me up, and we were in, again, the glass office, and I was stood in the studio and you and Dan were in the glass office, and I just mouthed through the glass, "We've won it." And all of us were like, no.
No, don't. I could cry thinking about it.
It was still like the best moment, and that was 6 years ago this year.
That feeling was like, honestly, I filled up because it was just a feeling I don't think we've achieved so much since then, but nothing will ever.
Well, nothing feels like your first big win. And I remember my business mentor at the time being like, bottle this feeling up because it will never feel like that. And we've won really great things since then. But that, it was the first time I was like, we're doing this. Like, we're not this small fry company that everybody keeps trying to put us in this box of. we've just won our first cruise ship contract and we're going to put performers on here doing the career that we had, and they're going to go sail the world and we're going to do it. And it was the catalyst for our growth, like we knew it would be.
Yeah, that was, honestly, I love that moment as well. What a time. Take me back. What is your favourite part of the behind the scenes when it comes to creating shows, creating immersive events, whatever it is? What's your favourite part of it?
What do you mean in terms of the creative or the experience?
Both. Either from the experience of us pitching to us being on site delivering, what's your favourite behind the scenes bit?
I think one thing that I'm going to touch on here is I think there's sometimes a tendency to make entertainment companies super corporate and suck out all the joy and creativity in what we do. Ultimately, we are creating entertainment, yet the process could end up being anything but entertaining. And I think what we're really good at is keeping the whole thing really fun and really lighthearted. And Dan always says, and we always say it, it's just singing and dancing. It's not heart surgery. We're not saving anyone's lives. Yes, we want to do a really good job. We want it to be a high standard, but no one dies. So let's just enjoy it. And that's something that I really cherish, because from pitching to our clients, we're always making our clients laugh and having a really good time, to actually delivering it all the way through. The relationships that we've created with key people are just fun all the time. There is never a time when we're not all laughing, even if it's like ringing up our costume lady and be like, we need 900 red suits by tomorrow. We'll still make you laugh though. Yeah. Like, we still have a good time, don't we?
Yeah.
Even when we're in the throes of despair,
we
still
event.
Find the funny in it.
Yeah, people, everyone's crying. It's all going tits up.
Do you
Sorry.
remember when it all went tits up and Dan had to take his actual pants off to give to a performer? And he was so fuming because this performer had turned up. He was an independent musician, had turned up with a brief. He'd had a brief,
yep.
Did not turn up in the correct trousers. Dan was like, I'm going to have to take my actual trousers off and give you my trousers. And he was so mad, but honestly, funny. Really funny. And it's
really
just
good time.
tiny little things like that happen all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a really rogue example, but like the pressure was on for us to deliver that show, and still funny.
But yeah, it doesn't need to be corporate, does it? And also the way you interact with performers, it should never be corporate. No. Because they're creative.
Again, I want them to respect us because, you know, it needs that to be able to get the job done, but also have a laugh with us. If there's something bothering you, you can come to any of us. And I think we have that, because I have, you know, performers that are on the ship now being like, Amy, I've got this thing and I'd really like to learn about this. I could never message my boss back when I worked back on ships. That wouldn't be a thing at all. I've got them all on Instagram, replying to the story, flame emoji.
Love that.
Yeah.
My favourite is when performers give you skincare tips.
Yeah.
Or like, what perfume have you got on? I'll send you a link. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, what is next for Pop Up Global?
What isn't next?
Yeah.
We are really, I think the past couple of years, we have really cemented who we are. And I will be the first to admit that a few years ago, I looked around at what everybody else was doing and was like, oh, I want to be like that. And I absolutely do not, because we found our space. Everybody else is doing what they're doing well. We found our space. We are super selective about who we work with. And that's not just from like a status of who the company is thing, although we are more selective on, you know, premium luxury clients, but we work with an array of different clients, but we base it on, is it easy to deliver, or will this suck the soul out of all of us?
Yeah.
Will our performers enjoy it? Will we have creative autonomy? And what opportunities will it create for people? And I think in the past we've been guilty of just going for anything and everything, when actually, and we did, didn't we, a couple of years ago say, we're not doing this. And we got this really big contract that somebody wanted to offer us. And we all sat down and we were like, we're not doing this. And it was millions.
Yeah.
In fact, there's been 3 contracts that are millions that we've said, we're not doing it. And I remember people being like, why would you turn that down? And actually now we wouldn't be where we are today if we were working with those particular clients.
It would have taken us in the a different direction and not one necessarily that we would have enjoyed.
Yeah. So I think 2024 really lay the foundations of where we're going, and 2025 is now where we execute on that. And we still want to be the company that clients want to work with and performers want to work for. But now that's going to be on steroids because I've just got this clear vision of the brand that we're going to be. And I think that's a really key word. It's going to be aspirational to work with or work for Pop-Up. And I think 2025 is going to be really, really big.
What's coming next on the podcast?
So I think these first few episodes are going to be introducing you, Shelley, Dan. I really want everybody to get to know the people that make Pop-Up what it is. And then we're going to start inviting on some very special guests.
So why should people listen?
I want to, like I said before, take away this kind of corporate veil that entertainment companies can often have. And I want people to really feel like they're here with us in the living room, having a coffee, listening to their friends chat about something that they're just really passionate about. Because hopefully that will then inspire other performers to want to do the same. In fact, I've been helping a few performers who have messaged me who want to set up their own entertainment companies, and I've been advising them on how to do that because there's space for so many people to do that. And if anybody feels like that's a path that they'd like to take, hopefully this could inspire them. If the path is to transition to work for a company like this, like you and the guys have done, hopefully they will learn, things on how to do that. And if they don't want to transition, then they'll just have a good laugh.
Top bands the whole time?
Yeah, especially when Dan's on. It's annoying because he is the funny one.
I know, sick of it. And then he'll get, when's Dan coming back?
Yeah.
And he'll love it and he'll screenshot it and put it in the group chat.
Yeah.
Okay, so every podcast we are going to ask on our Instagram if performers have any questions that they'd like us to ask. And we're going to end the podcast. It's been a long day. End the podcast with one of those questions. So the question that we've been asked today that I chose is, what's the difference between reaching out to ask questions professionally and pestering?
That is a very good question because there is a line that some people cross, and I've got to say that. First of all, think about what value are you adding to Pop-Up by messaging us, because it's the exact way we have to think when we're reaching out to clients. You want to work with Pop-Up, you want an opportunity to perform. Why should we consider you? What we often get is, hi, have you got any jobs? And then you don't reply and it's like 4 question marks and then another couple of question marks. So that comes across as rude. And it actually happens more times than it should really. I think contacting on Instagram, it seems like a good idea, but it gets lost because we've got nearly 30,000 followers now, and the amount of people that reply, it just gets lost. Email etiquette is incredibly important. And again, it's not speaking about you all the way through. It's speaking about you in relation to why you could bring value to working with this company. We have so many AI tools in the world now that can help anybody learn how to do email etiquette. However, don't make it look like you've run it through ChatGPT because that's also not going to be great either. However, I do respect the care that somebody's taken if they have run it through ChatGPT because they want to come across well. I think also consider that if there isn't a live casting and you'll just keep emailing over and over again, that's when you're bordering on pestering. If there's a live casting and it is relevant to you, then absolutely contact. And do you know what I think is missing? And Shelley's going to hate me for saying this. No one picks up the phone.
I knew you were going to say that, and I think that's such a good point.
No one picks up the phone. Hi, I've seen a casting. I'd be really, really interested, and this is why, because I've got experience doing this, and this, and this is what I'm really good at. And I think my skills would really elevate your shows. Great. I would love to learn more. But no one picks up the phone anymore.
No.
They all WhatsApp Shelley, bless her, or hound the casting email, and they don't, they just talk about what they want to get out of the situation.
Yeah, not what they can bring.
Yeah, and let's think, we're all working to a shared goal here. So, we have a client, they have an audience to deliver to. So we all need to work backwards on that brief. And so
in that case, I guess it is a bit businessy for performers. They
you're
should be running it like a
self-employed.
business.
Yeah, and that's why I was going back to like your personal brand. Everybody that works within the industry is self-employed. Even if you're represented by an agent, you are ultimately self-employed. And so you have to treat your career like a business, and you have to be thinking about the value that you're going to bring to the end goal, which is the audience response to the product. You have to think that far ahead. Thank you for listening to our very first episode of Beyond the Show. If you tune in next week, you will listen to Dan Clift talk about his journey from stage to the creative director of Pop-Up Global. Thank you.
Creative operations director, but fine, it'll do.
Creative operations director.
You gave him the
made that
title.
up.